Welcome back, everyone. This week we start a new series, Into the Wilderness, Part 1. So hopefully you enjoy this. Let's get it. Perfect, perfect. All right. Now let's get on the screen. Perfect. And you guys can see the screen, right?
Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. Okay. Um, all right. So today is part 1 of the Moses into the Wilderness series. And so, like I said, we're just going to jump straight into it. So last week we went over the Red Sea, how God delivered Israel from Pharaoh and their enemy, and how we started to see a cycle starting where they grumble, they complain, but God shows them, hey, if you're gonna rock with me, I need you to trust me. And we're gonna see this happening throughout today's thing. We're gonna go over 4 main parts. Um, and it's the preparation, pretty much how we're getting things ready to get this group into what we call the nation of Israel. Um, we want them to understand that, or God wants them to understand that, hey, before you guys get even close or think about going to the promised land, you guys can't be who you guys were. Your mindset is still messed up, and I got to fix it. So, this, we're going to see that process within these next couple chapters, how God actually does that with them. Any questions before we get started?
No.
All right, all right. So, like I said, so this is the crucible of transformation. Um, so for point 1, chapter 16 pretty much is going to be the sustenance for them to learn how to trust because they're going into from Elam, where they just started from, where they were in the springs and the water where we left last week. We're going into what they call the desert of sin. Okay. So this is chapter 16. Chapter 17 is their survival era or survivor arc. Um, Number 3 is structure, learning the structure of what should be the nation, the leadership structure at least. And number 4 is sanctification. This is their graduation, and this is how they actually graduate into becoming the people of Israel. And this is what sets the precedent of what they should follow from this point forward, and what sets up the foundation for the desert on why God's wrath eats them up or destroys them whenever they mess up. Okay. Um, the next Bible study, not next week, but the week after, will be after of course they graduate at the end of this, but we'll go into the Ten Commandments and we'll break those down and we'll go into why things start to now change for this nation and how it develops into them being there for 40 years. Okay. So this is the beginning. This is the foundation, and this is what we're going to focus on for this Bible study. So, chapter 16, first crisis is we get a distorted memory of Egypt. We get like a callback. We are on the 15th day of the second month after leaving Egypt. Remember, their calendar starts as soon as they left Egypt. God said, you guys have a new calendar. This is your new one that you follow. This is what's going to be for you guys. And from here on out, that's how you guys are going to do your holidays, everything, and keep the Sabbath, all that. So this is the 15th day of month 2 after leaving Egypt. Okay. So it hasn't even been that long, just almost a couple weeks, almost a month. after they left Elam in the springs, and this is what we got. They grumbled for the water being bitter. God fixed it. Now we have another issue. So, um, no, Stefan, can I get you to read Exodus 16, 1 through 3?
Okay. Um, Chapter 16. We're starting at verse 1. The whole Israelite community set out for Elam and came to the desert of Sin, which is between Elam and Sinai, on the 15th day in the second month after they had come out of Egypt. In the desert, the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. But you have brought us out into this desert to starve this entire assembly to death."
Okay. So, what I want to go ahead and harp, and I've always loved this part, especially verse 3, because it to me is hilarious. Here they are in the desert. They just finished complaining about the water being bitter. Not that they didn't have water, but the water didn't taste good. Mind you, these are slaves that they just got scraps, nothing, right? 400 years, scraps, barely surviving, barely eating. They complained about the water being bitter. Not that they didn't have water, but that the water was bitter. And what's even funnier now is a couple weeks later, they're hungry and they're so consumed with their hunger that they're literally grumbling to Moses, it would be better for us to go back into Egypt and die at the hands of our slave masters, die in slavery instead. Because if we died in Egypt, at least we could have sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. But you brought us out here to die, pretty much to starve to death. Newsflash: when did they ever have pots of meat to eat? When were they able to eat all the food they wanted? They were crying out for help. They had no food to eat. But God gives you guys some jewelry, some clothes on your back, all the supplies you needed to go in there. You guys have been surviving for about 2 months. For about 2 months. And all of a sudden, if we go back to Egypt, we'll have meat. You go back to Egypt, you're in slavery, you have scraps yet again, and you'll be complaining all over again. But fear can distort memories. And this is what we're seeing right here. Almost 2 to 3 million people are saying in unison, yeah, we had food to eat. No, y'all didn't. But yet, this is what they're believing. This is what they're believing. And they literally sat here and told Moses, it would have been better for us to die in Egypt. They're challenging God in his capacity to provide for them. Okay? So that same cycle that I told you guys was going to keep happening in the desert is still here. This is what God has to, again, cut out of these people so he can focus on building his country. So we're gonna go over um Exodus 16 verses 4 to 20. We're gonna go over something called what they call the law of daily dependence. Okay. God's response to their grumbling. The first verse right after that is Exodus 16, verse 4. And he says, the Lord says to Moses, behold, I am about to rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, that I may test them whether they will walk in my law or not. Okay, and I'm gonna read all the way to verse 20. Verse 5. On the sixth day, when they prepare what they bring in, I will be twice as much as, or it will be twice as much as they gather daily. So Moses and Aaron said to all the people of Israel, at evening you shall know that it was the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt. And in the morning you shall see the glory of the Lord, because he has heard your grumbling against him. For what are we that we grumble against us? Or that you grumble against us. And Moses said, verse 9, when the Lord gives you in the evening meat to eat, and in the morning bread to the full, because the Lord has heard your grumbling that you're grumbling against him, what are we? Your grumbling is not against us, but against the Lord. This is Moses and Aaron saying to them, you guys are not angry with us. That means you're angry with God. Verse 9, and Moses said to Aaron, say to the whole congregation of people of Israel, come near before the Lord, for he has heard your grumbling. And as soon as Aaron spoke to the whole congregation of people of Israel, they looked towards the wilderness, and behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. And the Lord said to Moses, I have heard the grumbling of the people of Israel. Say to them, at twilight you shall eat meat, in the morning you shall be filled with bread. Then you shall know that I am the Lord your God. All right. I'm gonna stop right there just so I can go over the law of daily dependence, and then I'll continue. So that we're stopped at verse 12. Okay. So the law of daily dependence, and this is what the Jews would have pulled out and used what was going on over here, and this is how they break it down for their families. So we have four main parts to this. First part is trust over hoarding. Okay. Um, Number two, dependence is a daily decision. Number three, God's provisions has limits and boundaries. And number four, tomorrow's provisions are hidden. Okay. Now I will continue. In the evening, quail came up and covered the camp. And in the morning, dew lay around the camp. And when the dew had gone up, there was on the face of the wilderness a fine flake like thing, fine as frost on the ground. When the people of Israel saw it, they said to one another, what is it? For they did not know what it was. And Moses said to them, it is bread that the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Gather of it, each one of you, as much as he can eat. You shall eat, you shall each take an omer, according to the number of persons that each of you has in his tent. And the people of Israel did so. They gathered some more, some less. But when they measured it with an omer, whoever gathered much had nothing left over. And whoever gathered little had no lack. Each of them gathered as much as he could eat. And Moses said to them, let no one leave any of it over till the morning. But they did not listen to Moses. Some left part of it till the morning, and it bred worms and stank. And Moses was angry with them. Morning by morning they gathered it, each as much as he could eat. But when the sun grew hot, it melted. All right. Now, one of the things that God wanted them to understand, again, this is them transforming and starting to learn. They've been complaining. First part of the cycle, God wants them to be able to depend on him. Israel is going to be a country that depends on God, nobody else, not themselves, not Moses, not Aaron, but on God. So he told them, you want food? I'm going to give you food. So what he did is every day, I want you to follow my rules. I'm going to give you food from heaven. Quail is going to be in the desert, is going to cover your camp. That's going to be your meat. Kill them, eat them. That's your meat. And there's going to be dew. As you guys know, in the morning, you see the drops of water on grass and on cars. That's dew. God puts it through a process where it makes like this flake like frost looking thing. And he wanted them to collect it and eat that as much as they can collect. Now, what God gave them, he named manna. Okay. This was a flat bread type of thing that came from the sky and mixed with whatever God put as the chemical compounds with it, they had bread to eat, enough to make them full. Okay? Bread and meat was their daily how can I say it, diet. Okay? And with that being said, that's exactly how God said, okay, every morning, not only do you have to wake up and go collect it, that means you have to work for it. You're not slaves anymore. However, you have to go get it. You have to work. This is why, as Christians, we're not meant to be lazy. You see, a Christian. My favorite speaker, Vodi Bachman, used to say, "Lazy man, don't let him eat." Simple as that. A lazy man, don't let him eat. Lazy Christian, don't let him eat. Don't deserve any blessings at that point. All right. So every morning they have to wake up, walk outside, and they have to trust and believe that God provided again for them. Faith had to become a daily lifestyle, pretty much a daily workout. God is saying that this thing is going to fall from the sky. I've never seen food fall from the sky, but yet God's telling me to trust him every day, and there's going to be manna sitting on the floor, and we got to go collect it. So this became a daily tradition. Notice this is how they also started to have a habit of going out in the morning to start their work days at the crack of dawn. Okay. This is where this is all starting from. Number three, God's provisions has limits and boundaries. Okay. God told them, fill up an omer. Okay. What is an omer? An omer is pretty much a jar, but the size of it is pretty much half a gallon. Okay. It's almost half a gallon. God said, fill up an omer, each one according to your people that's in your tent. Not anymore. If you do less, I mean, that's on you, but fill it up. Don't get more. Okay. He gave enough, but he also gave rules with this provision. Pretty much work, but don't exhaust yourself. Get enough for yourself and your family, but don't get greedy. Okay. Again, how does this translate to our daily lives? Work enough to make sure you can take care of your family, but don't get greedy to the point where you neglect them, start trying to hoard too much. You're thinking you're going to be the richest man in the world. Yeah, this is God already trying to set the boundaries and limits for them to be successful people. But again, they're still too immature to see this at this point. Number four, tomorrow's provision is hidden. Okay. God didn't show them that, hey, it's already there waiting for you for tomorrow, because again, he wanted them to depend on him. So to depend on God means you can't know what's going to happen tomorrow. If you, and I put it down there, if you could see next week's manna, faith wouldn't be necessary. If you knew next week God was going to give you a car, you're not going to worry about your ride. If you knew next week God was going to make you a millionaire, you wouldn't worry about your bills. To have faith, you got to trust and depend on his provision. Okay? So, with that being said, this is the reason why he told them, eat everything that's in there. Remember, he's been saying this since they left Egypt. Finish everything at once. Get into the habit of when you cook it, eat it, throw everything else, the scraps, throw it to the animals, throw the rest away. Because he didn't want them to be a people who hoard, who start getting greedy, who start to become cocky in a sense, where they start to think, well, I can save this for tomorrow. I got this. I can do this by myself. No, he wants them to depend on him. So he told them, if you hoard the manna and you let it spill over, or you save just even a little bit, not only is it going to breed worms, it's going to stink. Not only that, you're going to ruin your provisions because you didn't listen. Why is it going to breed worms? Because again, what you're doing is a rotten mindset. It's showing them a glimpse of what they were already dealing with in Egypt. You're going to get the maggots of the ground, worms. You're going to get the dirt, pretty much. I gave you something good from my hands, but you still chose to try to work your own way up by your own hands and look what you can do by yourself. Filled with maggots. It's supposed to be a reminder of Egypt for them to say, hey, you know what? God told me not to do this. I'm not going to do it. And the stench is to let everybody else around them realize this person didn't listen. That person didn't listen. It's a clear indication that, hey, God told us one thing and that person's not listening. So to hold them all accountable of what they were doing. Okay. Now, these are, again, the laws of daily dependence, but this is how God would now shape this group into a group that will depend on him. Okay. So, one of the questions I have from this law of daily dependence is, are you trusting God's provision today, or are you trying to secure tomorrow without him? Keep that in mind. Let's continue. So, the manna protocol. This part of the verse where they're gathering in the Omer, all the manna, and having the quail, God also wanted to show them how to respect the Sabbath. Remember, they're only in month 2, the 15th day of month 2 after leaving Egypt. And God is now trying to reestablish the Sabbath for them because as slaves, they just worked every day, no rest. So now God's trying to tell them, hey, day 1 through 5, day 1 through 5, that's the cycle. Day 1 through 5, day 1 through 5, day 1 through 5, every week, always 1 omer per tent. Fill that up. That will be enough for your tent, for everybody to eat, to be full. Everything else should be done after that. But on day 6 of each week, fill up 2 omers. That's going to last you for 1 day and the Sabbath. Let's just say day 7th. But why is it 2 omers? Where if they kept 1 omer and it went over, it would stink and it would breed maggots. Because he wanted to establish to them, my rest day is holy. This was what it was from the beginning, and you guys are now going to start doing that again. It was forgotten. I want you guys to remember it. So this is where he now established the Sabbath, what they call a Sabbath rest rhythm. Okay. So the daily dependence led to them instituting the Sabbath rest rhythm, which is why Jews, the Islamic people, all of them, rest is mandatory. The Sabbath is always to be respected. For some reason, in Christian culture now, we have fallen away from that. Sunday is the church day for us, and then after that, we'll go to work later. Or if you go to church on Saturday, Sabbath, you'll go to church and then you go to work later. God established this with them because, again, he wanted them to understand, when I created you, I gave enough for each day. I gave enough provision for each day. And on the last day, I want you to rest. Remember, reflect. Now you guys have something to reflect about, how I took you out of Egypt and how I'm still providing for you guys every single day. And I don't want you guys to forget that. So God, like I said, gives them the rule. Those are the details, the bread and the quail. Now, this is the test. If they didn't follow, all their food would go rotten. So that's the beautiful part about it. If you were looking out, you woke up early on the Sabbath looking for more food, all your stuff would go rotten. And again, it would stink. They would know you didn't follow the rules. Again, it was a way of keeping everybody in line and also kind of calling you out like, that person didn't do it. So this is what God is doing with them to train them. So now we get to our next point. Okay. So now we have daily dependence on God. We have the Sabbath rest rhythm. And this is God trying to get their dependence on him. First phase. Second crisis that we run into, again, just like the beginning, they complained, God has to intervene. So they get to a place called Rephidim, okay? And when they're there, the people are quarreling with Moses. And they say to him, why have you brought us out here? You brought us out of Egypt so we can die of thirst. And Moses said to them, pretty much, you're not arguing with me. You guys are arguing with God. I need you to understand. So I'm going to go ahead and read it for you guys. Chapter 17, verse 1. All the congregation of the people of Israel moved on from the wilderness of Sin by stages, according to the commandments of the Lord, and camped out at Rephidim. But there was no water for the people to drink. Therefore, the people quarreled with Moses and said, give us water to drink. And Moses said to them, why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test the Lord? But the people thirst there for water. And the people grumbled against Moses and said, why did you bring us out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst? So Moses cried to the Lord, what should I do with this people? They are almost ready to stone me. And the Lord said to Moses, pass on before the people, taking with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. Behold, I will stand before you there on the rock at Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and water shall come out of it, and the people will drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders, and he called the name of the place Massa and Meribah, because of the quarreling of the people for Massa, and Meribah, I mean, my bad, Massa for testing and Meribah for quarreling. And because they tested the Lord by saying, is the Lord among us or not? Okay. Now, here is crisis number 2. First crisis, no food. They started imagining and being delusional. Now, here they're thirsty and they want water to drink. Remember, Elam, they had water, but they wanted the quality of the water better. Had no food. They complained. They got food. Now they is no water. And now they're ready to stone Moses. Moses said, you're not mad with me. You got to take it up with God. So this is probably one of the biggest anchors that we get in the faith because of what happens here. When God told Moses, go ahead and strike the rock, it wasn't just him by himself. He said, go with some elders because he was going to need support. He said, strike the rock, it will split, and water's going to pour out. And when this happens, all the people were able to drink. You think that was going to stop them from complaining, realizing that God has their back? Of course not. So I took a picture of the rock of Horeb, okay? On the left is the real rock of Horeb that you would see today if you go to the desert. It's still there. All the rocks are smooth, and if you look closely in the corner, you'll see how small the people are. Okay, it's at the bottom left corner. You'll see somebody with his hands up. Is really, really small. But just to show you the size of the people compared to this rock. Now, this is the rock that would have burst and all the erosion from water. This is the only smooth rock in this whole area. So unanimously, everybody understands that this is where they would have had to come to get this water that the Bible talks about. And because it has a split in between, that would have gave rise to a geyser inside and water to fall out. And literally, if you look down, all those rocks are what seem to make like a stream-like erosion path. So this is exactly what would have been the place where Moses would have gave them the water. Now, so these are our 2 big places already. Okay. So chapter 16, they're in the desert of sin. What was the threat? hunger. They started to be their reaction delusional and wanting to go back into captivity. What was God's reaction to them? Manna and quail. The main lesson, this is for if you guys are taking your notes. The core lesson, daily obedience and trust is how you build that faith with God. Okay? Now we move to chapter 17, Rephidim. What was the threat? Thirst. What was their reaction? Mutiny, quarreling with Moses. What was God's reaction? Water from the rock. The core lesson, unmetered grace despite faith in failure because they still did not trust in him. And he said, you know what? Still give you guys what you guys want. I have your back. However, there's going to start being consequences for failing to listen to what I'm telling you guys to do. I'm telling you guys, just follow these rules, follow whatever Moses tells you to do. If Moses is leading you, he's not going to lead you into danger. I promise you that. But because they still can't trust God, God says, I have to bring it up a notch, if you will. So now we move down to verse 8. And can I get Stefan to read verse 8 in chapter 17 to 16? 8 to 16.
All right, starting at 8. The Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, "Choose some of our men and go out to fight the Amalekites. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hands." So Joshua fought the Amalekites as Moses had ordered, and Moses, Aaron, and Hur went to the top of the hill. As long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning. But whenever he lowered his hands, the Amalekites were winning. When Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and put it under him and sat on it. Aaron and Hur held his hands up, one on one side and one on the other, so that his hands remained steady till sunset. So Joshua came over. So Joshua overcame the Amalekite army with the sword. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Write this on a scroll as something to be remembered, and make sure that Joshua hears it, because I will completely blot out the memory of um, Ami- Amalek,
Amalek,
Amalek, thanks,
no problem.
Amalek from under heaven." Moses built an altar and called it, "The Lord is my banner." He said, "For hands were lifted up to the throne of the Lord. The Lord will be at war against the Amalekites from generation to generation."
Okay. So here is where God takes the fight up to a whole nother level. Okay. He's pretty much telling them, look, I've already provided for you. I've already sustained for you. From this point forward, you guys have to work for it. This is not just your daily go collect food for your family. You guys have to protect your family at this point. Teaching you guys to have pride and honor for your country, to defend your country. Where are my men at? Where are my warriors at? Where are my people who want to make this nation great? I'm going to teach you now for you guys to continue to survive. You guys have to now start to build up yourselves. You guys were slaves before. Now you guys are going to become a new people. No more are refugees. Time to take a sword and start building ranks and getting ready to defend yourselves. So God takes an army The Amalekite armies. Remember, we talked about this back with Abraham, that the first group of people who would attack the nation of Israel would be from one of his descendants, Amalekite, or Amalek, my bad, from Amalek. And the Amalekite army seen them. They witnessed them get the manna every morning, see a whole bunch of quail just pop up out of nowhere on their plantations, and see that people were eating. They didn't really have to do too much, but just step outside their houses and their tents and get food and get supplies. So they said, okay, bet this is a nation of refugees. We've heard about them from what was going on in Egypt. And again, remember, it's been about 2 months now. Word has already spread. So they said, we're going to take them. We're going to overthrow them. We're going to fight them in the valley. And I don't know if you guys ever heard in church, the fight always happens in the valley. There's a reason for that. As we see the physical front, Moses tells Joshua, find some men to go fight. Mind you, none of them have formal training. This is a actual army coming against them. But God says, I got you. Moses, his brother Aaron, and one of the elders, Hur, go to the top of the hill with the staff of God. Same staff that split the Nile. While they are up there, God shows them protection and that he fights with them as their first battle rips out. So pretty much building their confidence up. What does he do? Every time they are fighting, he wants them to look up from the valley to where their salvation comes from. And if you know, that's a verse in Psalms. Um, they want them to look at Moses on the hill, because when you look up to God for victory, he takes care of it. Meaning, trust in the Lord to have your back through these battles. That also means spiritually, when you are not winning a battle, you feel like you're spiraling out, things are not working, look up. Look up. God got it. Remember, God is up there. That's what he wants you to understand. So as Joshua and his men are in the valley fighting, Moses is intervening with God on the spiritual front up at the top. God is above and he got it. Every battle that you do when you're on your faith walk has two fronts. You got the physical front and you got the spiritual front. Spiritual front is always higher. You're always in the valley, it's always higher. God shows them the ultimate victory. But here's how God also shows them how he fights with them. Remember, they got to look up. So as they're looking up, this is a graph of how the battle was going. Moses cannot do this alone, which is why he went up with two other people. Okay. As he's up there, this is where we start to get now intercession. Every time Moses lowered his hands, the Amalekites were starting to win. Every time he raised up his hands, they were losing again. So these are the pits and falls in the valley. This mirrors pretty much our lives with our faith walk. We're doing good. We're on a spiritual high. We're at the top of the mountain with God. We're winning those battles. And then, we kind of fall back into it, backtrack a little bit, and now we're losing. And then we look back up again and back on that high again, sitting there right with God, and everything's working again. So it shows just how life truly goes. It mimics just how our faith walks really work. And so it got so bad that Moses like, bro, this battle's going on too long. I'm too tired. So what do? They put a stone underneath him, and for him to sit down, and but kind of keeping him a little elevated so he can still stand up. And they put stones underneath his arms so it can hold up his arms while they're helping. What does this show? For a community to work, you cannot do it alone. For you to make it through some of your battles, you cannot do it alone. This is why, even with Bible study, you cannot do it alone. God never intended for fellowship and for us to make it in this walk with Him alone. That's why He made Adam and Eve out of creation. Everything else was, it was good. The only time He said it was not good was that man was alone. We were never made to do things alone. And here He's showing you need your support of your fellow brothers and sisters, no matter what, when you're trying to walk with God, because these battles will get tough. Your arms will get tired. And sometimes, if your friends can't keep praying and helping and supporting, you need friends who will put something underneath you to help you have the support when they grow tired as well. Your God is your support. And that's what He's trying to show you. So they win this battle. And now we have the power of intercession and showing exactly how God fights for the nation of Israel. Now, this is the first battle. We'll see this theme reoccurring with every battle that they do for the next 40 years. It has the same theme. God fights on their behalf every time their arms are up. So now, three trials. Again, chapter 16, the grumbling and the delusions for Egypt. God took care of it. Bread and quail from heaven. The ready to stone me. Chapter 17, for their thirst. Cries out to God, Moses. And what does God give him? Water from the rock of Horeb. Number 3, the annihilation of the Amalekites. This is where we actually get the group of people that God wanted gone. Why did God want these people gone? Because they were detestable in His eyes. And we'll bring these people back up because there's a big reason why they're the first people that God wants gone when they're on their way to Canaan. We'll see them come back up when we get to King Saul's story. And if anybody's seen the movie David and or knows the story of David, you know this is a group that should have been dead and killed. And Saul let them survive. That's how he lost the throne. But like I said, this is how the story intertwines, but we'll come back to this in the future. Um, but yes, first battle, they take up their swords. Moses ascends the hill. God shows them, you partner up with me, you'll always have victory. So now we move into our fourth thing, our structure. So once we get into chapter 18, we get Jethro coming to see what Moses is doing. Because remember, Midian is not too far from Mount Sinai. This is where they're getting to at this point. They've made it to Mount Sinai, the bottom of the peninsula. And so Jethro, hearing this, brings Moses' wife and his 2 kids. Okay. And while he's there, he is looking at what Moses is doing with the people. Let me get Brianna for you to read chapter 18, verses 17 through 18. My bad, 13 through 18.
Okay, 1 second. It doesn't matter what version.
No, not at all.
Okay. Chapter 18, you said verses 13 to what?
To 18.
To 18. Okay. 1 second. All right. The next day, Moses took his seat to serve as judge for the people, and they stood around him from morning till evening. When his father-in-law saw all that Moses was doing for the people, he said, "What is this you are doing for the people? Why do you alone sit as judge while all these people stand around you from morning till evening?" Moses answered him, because the people come to me to seek God's will. Whenever they have a dispute, it is brought to me, and I decide between the parties and inform them of God's decrees and instructions. Moses' father-in-law replied, what you are doing is not good. You and these people who come to you will only wear yourselves out. The work is too heavy for you. You cannot handle it alone.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Raven, can I get you to read verses 19 through 20? My bad. To 27.
1927. Okay. Now listen to me and let me give you a word of advice, and may God be with you. You should continue to be the people's representative before God, bringing their disputes to Him. Teach them God's decrees and give them His instructions. Show them how to conduct their lives. But select from all the people some capable, honest men who fear God and hate bribes. Appoint them as leaders over groups of 1,000, 150, and 10. They should always be available to solve the people's common disputes, but have them bring the major cases to you. Let the leaders decide the smaller matters themselves. They will help you carry the load, making the task easier for you. If you follow this advice and if God commands you to do so, then you'll be able to endure the pressures, and all these people will go home in peace. Moses listened to his father in law's advice and followed his suggestions. He chose capable men from all over Israel and appointed them as leaders over the people. He put them in charge of groups of 1,000, 150, and 10. These men were always available to solve the people's common disputes. They brought the major cases to Moses, but they took care of the smaller matters themselves. Soon after this, Moses said goodbye to his father in law, who returned to his own land.
Thank you, thank you. Okay. So I know this picture looks crazy, but this is just different arrows showing the group of people that Moses is now trying to handle each issue individually of everybody. Everybody, oh, he stepped on my stuff, or he took food from my camp, and this, that. He's taking care of it all, from the big stuff to the little stuff. And when Jethro comes, again, he's trying to bring Moses' wife and his kids, because again, if you're going to do this journey, you need your family with you. So as they're eating and as he's watching him do this with his people, Jethro says, come talk to me for a second. And he explains to him, yeah, what you're doing is not good. It doesn't make any sense. He's like, listen, you are still God's appointed people over them. However, listen to my words, listen to my advice. So this is what it means when they said, go to a wise elder and seek counsel from somebody wiser than you. Whenever you have something that is too hard for you to do or too heavy of a burden for you to do, seek godly counsel from wise men or wiser than you. Now, he gives them a structure because he tells them, if you try to do everything by yourself, not only will you lose it eventually, the people won't be able to trust in you either. Okay? So he gives them the command, hey, look, select men who fear God, who won't take any bribes, who won't lie, who won't mistreat justice. Okay? And that way you can take care of everything from the forefront, and everything will be taken care of. How does he do it? The leaders of thousands, those group of men are going to take care of the little things. Oh, he took my stuff, or he did this to me, or he lied, or my wife said this, and all those little things, the leaders of thousands are going to take care of. The leaders of hundreds will take care of some of the more serious things. Hey, he killed my cattle, or he stole my cattle because his cattle went missing. His livestock went missing. Leaders of 100 take care of that. Leaders of 50 would take care of even bigger things like, hey, my wife was sleeping at his tent. He's stealing from me. And now I lost all my money. Like all the actual bigger things that cause for real good concern. Oh, he assaulted me. He raped my wife. Whatever it is, leaders of the 50 would take care of. The leaders of 10 would take some of the difficult cases, murder, blasphemy, things like that. But Moses himself would be like the Supreme Court. he would take the hardest and highest difficult cases that didn't make sense to anybody. And that's when he would go to God and say, hey, listen, God, this situation is out of hand. Help me. And this is how they started a structure of court systems in Israel that they followed from here. But again, you can see remnants of this in the rest of the world till this day. Each level dealt with something heavier. Okay. So this was what became anointed as the structure of the judges in Israel. Again, this is how we go towards the judges system when we get to the promised land later on. Okay. After we get done with this, we move into chapter 19. All right. They're already here by Mount Sinai. They already met Jethro. And so now this is month 3. On the first day of the 3rd month, the Israelites arrive at the desert of Sinai. And now they're camping down at the foot of the mountain. Okay. Now, this is probably one of the biggest events for the desert. And this is where we're going to pretty much end our story today. But this mountain, the Mount Sinai, they still debate to this day where this day is, or where this mountain is. What's amazing about it is the Bible clearly tells you where this mountain is. Science and everybody else will say, oh no, it's over here instead. There's another mountain that they claim and have named Mount Sinai. But if you actually understand the Bible, you know the true Mount Sinai is not there. And I'll explain to you why. So at this point, I put it as a milestone. The crucible of the wilderness is complete. The preparation is over. And they're now about to meet with their maker to get the promise and finally be called his people, because now he has taught them that God provides for them. He shows them that I sustain you guys, that I'll fight for you guys, and I'm going to prepare you guys. All of this, the foundation that's being laid, so that way the next phase of their journey leads them closer towards the promised land. So we have the pre-covenant proposal. Okay. And while they're here, we have God pretty much talking through Moses, and you yourselves have seen what I did to Egypt and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Okay. And as Moses telling them, listen, God is going to follow us and lead us throughout this whole process. Just trust him. So, number 1, God is giving the promises of what will happen. So he tells them the setting. If you obey me fully and keep my commandments, you will be my treasured possessions out of all the nations. Be my special people. Okay. What is the promise? You will be a kingdom of priests. Okay. You'll be people who can actually talk to me one-on-one. People who can come to me and say, hey, God, forgive me. I can deal with you. This is why the promise ends up extending to everybody else through Jesus Christ later on. Because that was the original promise. You guys will be a kingdom of priests. Only the priesthood could talk to God and commune with God. Number 3, the condition. If you obey me fully and keep my covenant, you will be a holy nation. Okay? So we talked about this during Abraham, and I told you I'll bring it back up again later on. But I want to go over the 3 parts. So if you're writing your notes, I want to go over the 3 parts of what makes a holy covenant. Okay? The first 3 parts the only 3 parts of a covenant is going to be the parties. So the people who are involved in this covenant. Number 2, the promise. What is the terms, pretty much what is being promised here? Okay. And number 3, the sign. How do we know for future generations that this was the covenant? So again, the parties. who are involved in it. So, of course, this is going to be God and his people. Okay. The promise. What is it? If you do this, this will happen. If you do that, this is what's going to happen. The sign, usually God will always have a sign for each one of his covenants that will always make it and mark for generations to come. So one of the covenants that we know is Abraham and God, right? God enters a covenant with Abraham and tells him, hey, out of you is between me and you. So that's the parties. Two, the promise. Out of you, a blessed nation is going to come. You're going to be a father of many nations, and you have many descendants. That was the promise. Okay. As long as you follow me and have faith in me, you will have many descendants. And what was the sign? Circumcision. Everybody who sees that you're circumcised knows that you're a descendant of Abraham and knows that you guys believe in this covenant that I have with him. That is the holy mark I put on you and your descendants. Okay. Another one, Noah and the ark. Who are the parties involved? We have God and Noah and his family, right? What was the promise? Because of all the sin in the world, I will promise to wipe them out. But after that flood, I will not flood the world ever again to this magnitude. Okay? That was the promise. As long as you do what you got to do, I will never flood this world ever like this again. And what was the sign? A rainbow. And this is how covenants work. Okay? It's not just a set of rules, it's a relationship sealed by sacrifice. Okay? So we have the nation of Israel about to go into a covenant and a promise with God that is going to now separate them legally from the rest of the world. Now they will be his promised people. Remember, before he does anything with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, anybody, he always makes a promise. He always shows exactly how he will go over his blessings for them for generations to come. So with the nation of Israel, he has to do the same. For you guys to be called my people, we need to have a covenant. That way you and I both know where we stand. Okay. Now I want to go over something of how covenants were usually done when it was between two people. And we'll go over this marriage covenant later. But just real quickly, when a covenant was actually done physically back then, like a covenant between two people, it was a very special thing because for you to understand what the covenant means, there was a very big display. So it would be, hey, you and I both are doing this thing. And you're going to take some of your prized possessions, which would be your livestock. I'm going to take some of my prized possessions, which are my livestock. And we're going to cut their heads off. And you're going to put their head on one side and then make a straight line and put their body on the other side. And you're going to keep doing this, both me and you, opposite of each other. And we're going to make a path of this blood from start to finish. And when we walk down this path together, by the end of this path, when we meet, we just said the blood that was cut, slain, put on the ground for us, this our possessions, our stuff that we're having this covenant about. If one of us breaks this covenant, let us be like one of them that are on the ground. This is the epitome of a covenant. That's how they used to do physical covenants. When it wasn't between them and God, but with other people, this is how they did it. That's how they proved that they were going to hold and keep their covenant because they were not as holy as God. God goes back and says, listen, I don't need you guys to walk through this blood. I'm going to walk through this blood myself because the person I slain was my son and his blood is on the ground. And if you guys mess up, I paid the price through him. So this is why it's so important why he died on the cross for us, because he went back and did exactly what the covenant is between mankind and slain his own son for our sake. Again, it may not make so much sense just yet, but I'll have a picture of how I explain everything when we get closer to that point. Okay. Just wanted to kind of harp on covenant since this is going to set the groundwork for the next Bible study. Now, before you go into a covenant, before you do anything, holiness is required. So, how do you do that? Consecrate yourself. Okay. So, God gives a set guideline to Moses to tell to the people. Day 1 and day 2, wash your clothes, wash yourself, and set a perimeter around Mount Sinai. Okay? You cannot enter God's presence without being in the right mind. This is why at the beginning of church, before you get into any big worship, they always pray first. Let's come into God's presence properly. Okay? So you cannot go into his presence casually, like, oh yeah, I just rolled out of bed and boom. When you wake up, we always want to pray to start our day, right? You don't just, oh, hey, God, you're there. No, you consecrate yourself, you separate yourself, you pray at the foot of God. So that's why he said, hey, go ahead and clean yourselves for the first 2 days. Go ahead and concentrate yourself. He tells Moses to put a boundary and he makes it very strict. Whoever touches the mountain is to be put to death. Whoever even goes near the mountain is to be put to death. The boundary that Moses puts, even if you touch it, you die. And if you die, nobody can touch your body. It's marked to stay there. Don't go past that line. Don't touch that line. Don't even go near it. You do it, you die. They can't even move your body from where it's at. On day 3, Moses is to sound the ram's horn. Not only does that summon God in his presence on Mount Sinai, but it tells them now is the time for us to come in front of God. Again, let's look at that. Day 1, 2, and 3. Number 3 is back again. So when the ram's horn is sound, that's when they can finally approach the mountain. That is a time when God is to descend on Mount Sinai. At this moment, God descends, okay? The Lord descends in fire, flashing lightning, okay? He is in a cloud of smoke. And that's the atmosphere that you see on there. It strikes the top of the mountain, burning the mountain, okay? The sound, deafening thunder, like trumpets blasting and growing louder the deeper he comes down and closer to them. The whole mountain is shaking. The camp is shaking. Moses tells them, hold strong. God is coming to meet us. At this moment, that smoke that's there is God's presence meeting the 2 to 3 million people who are the nation of Israel. Here is when he marks them as his people. Okay? And this is where he pretty much tells them, listen, you guys are my people. And from here on out, this is how I want you guys to work. This is how I want you guys to move. And so he's going to set up some things for them. Now, I couldn't find the other picture of the other Mount Sinai in time, but this is the top of Mount Sinai. It's actually charred black. So if you see in the distance, everything's a little lighter shade of brown on the right, and at the top on the left, on the right side, it looks black, kind of like charcoal. That is where it is stated there is a marker there that the Jews and the people of the region have always looked to as Mount Sinai. But of course, modern science claims that Mount Sinai is miles away from there. But to this day, we know this is the mountain that God stepped foot down on and burned and scorched the top of the mountain. Okay. So if you want to look it up, you can always just type in Mount Sinai or the real Mount Sinai, and you'll see exactly the charred top of the mountain. And the reason why this is also important because that's exactly where Moses meets God. So we're finished here for today. But again, Mount Sinai is where we're gonna camp out for a while. Okay. So I'm gonna go over the four main lessons from today's Bible study. Remember, we started with talking about the four chapters and what exactly is important for them, and we're gonna go back over them again. So step one, going towards the mountain, is dependence. That's Exodus 16. Okay. God provides for all of our daily needs. Trust is learned one day at a time. Number two, partnership and sustaining. Okay. God fights for us, but requires our action and communal support. That's Exodus 17. Okay. Number three, order, structure. Godly leadership requires wisdom, scalable structure, and the empowerment of others. Okay. And number four, God rescues his people for relationship, demanding holiness for his presence. That is our covenant, and that's Exodus 19. All right. A lot of people think that being in the desert, or the Israelites at this point, think it's a punishment. But again, it's an incubator. And we've said this before. This is how they get transformed from refugees and slaves into a holy nation that has a promise from God. The same way like their ancestors. When God gave them that promise, their life dramatically changed because from that promise, they got a new name, they got a new identity, and they were able to walk in his presence. This group has a new identity. They are now the nation of Israel. And now at this mountain, when we come back, remember, we don't have no Bible study next week, but the week after, we will be talking in Exodus 20, which is Moses going to Mount Sinai for 40 days, over a month. And this is when we start talking about the 10 Commandments. So I really am looking forward to that, breaking down that. So before I end this part off, is there any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Comments? Concerns?
No.
Okay, okay. Well, thank you guys again for showing up today. I know the weather might have played a part in our numbers tonight, but again, it's never about numbers. And we're gonna keep working and keep pushing forward. Even if it starts to get boring or whatever, we're gonna keep pushing. Um, Brianna, I will have you pray to end us off tonight.
Okay, can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Give me 1 second.